So the next speaker, Brenda Hudson, is going to speak about building an influential network through trusted relationships. She's the SVP for commercial sales, sales enablement, learning and development, and Insight. Now, she joined Insight in 2015, but you were at Dell for 15 years before that. And what I love about your bio, Brenda, is that you talk about being a servant leader and embracing Insight's values of hunger, heart, and harmony. So you're responsible for more than 500 teammates, 1 billion of annual business, and you maintain your enthusiasm by standing up, I can see that, and dedicating by putting people first and building a strong and diverse leadership team. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So tell me, what's your power word for the year?
You know, my power word for the year is gratitude.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll learn about building an influential network through trusted relationships from you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Women in Cloud, for this time today. You know, when I think about trust and I think about just how that weaves through the fabric of our lives, both professionally and personally, it is so critical. It is something that really eclipses money in business. It eclipses what we may think is financially driven, right? When you think about how you make decisions, when you think about who you're drawn to in your life, both personally and professionally. For me, I start each day with a spirit and a heart of gratitude. Grace and gratitude, I call them my 2 G's. Those are the things that I truly live by, both personally and professionally. I fundamentally believe that when you create an environment of grace and gratitude in your professional life and in your personal life, it builds a culture and an environment that creates trust. For me, fundamentals of trust really envelop a number of key characteristics. First of all, active listening. Have you ever been in a situation where you're trying to build a relationship with someone? Of course, this is before a virtual world potentially, and you're sitting across from someone and you're eagerly trying to connect, and they're distracted, they're holding their phone, they're looking at their laptop, they're just sort of, not making any eye contact. Do you feel valued? Do you feel like you're making a connection? Do you feel like that's a trusting endeavor? Probably not, right? So in this world of virtual in particular, and this world where we're overcome with artificial intelligence, device palooza. I mean, there's just dozens of ways that you can be distracted in an engagement with someone. Active listening is so key. You learn so much, and actively listening, making eye contact, turn your camera on. If you have the privilege of being face-to-face in this crazy world that we're in, make eye contact, be intentional about being present in the discussion. It's so important to building trust. Be intentional, actively listen, be transparent, reserve judgment, okay? Be objective in your communications, and be consistent. And what I mean by that is, when you're intentional and you're building relationships, it's a time investment. And let's face it, it's a risk, right? There are times when you may put yourself out there for an individual in creating an environment of trust, or in expanding a relationship or creating a new relationship. And you have to begin with trust, because that's what builds trust, right? And you may demonstrate vulnerability, and it may be a risk, and that risk may or may not pay off, right? When you think about your life and you think again about personal and professional, sometimes the risk doesn't yield the rewards. I can tell you a time, and I've been in business for a number of years. Sometimes people elect to spend time with people based on an agenda, based on something that they're trying to achieve through that individual. And oftentimes, when you genuinely, intentionally invest in a relationship and in someone, and you learn through that process that perhaps the intentions of the other individual are more reward centric, right? More biased to something that they're trying to achieve through you. Does that build trust? That's happened to me in my career, where I felt like I had truly trusted, strong relationships only to learn that when I was no longer in a position to influence this individual in the way that they wanted me to help influence them, that they didn't have time for me, that it wasn't a genuine, authentic, invested relationship. That's a painful thing. And I'm not going to say that it hasn't happened multiple times in my life, but you have to make a choice. Continue to be vulnerable and continue to trust and continue to build, actively listen, be consistent in your intentions, be transparent in what you're doing. You know, throughout my professional career, I have expanded businesses for major companies. I've created new environments, new locations for businesses. I've been involved in M&A. And each and every one of those experiences by nature creates lack of trust, because when there is an acquisition or an enhancement, you're building a new location, for example, it creates anxiety, right? It creates fear. It creates this nuance around, well, what's this going to do to me or to my business or to my future? And so in my experience, creating and building trust in times of adversity, in times that create anxiety, like a company that's being acquired or a company that's expanding in another geographic area that could be perceived as taking opportunities away from individuals in their present, that creates a vulnerability in others, which can create a lack of trust. So again, I go back to the fundamentals of be intentional, be consistent in your communication, be transparent, do what you say you're going to do, right? Follow through, and really work on those milestones, right? Sometimes we don't consistently communicate when we feel like we don't have a conclusive answer or we don't have the solution to what somebody you believe the solution that they're seeking. Even if you don't, just checking in and creating those milestones of, hey, I'm still here for you. I'm listening. I'm here, I'm there, like I'm working on this. It could be a client that you're working with that you want to just check in. Think about the supply chain problems that we're having today. Do you know that to eclipse all of these headwinds, just communicate, build trust through ongoing follow through, even when the answer is it's going to be another 6 months. It could be 9 months, but just being authentic, being intentional about your communication and being transparent, following through. These are the fundamentals that build trust. Really, I have to say again that overarchingly, actively listening is so, so important. You learn so much when you just put down the phone, close the laptop, and just listen to whether it's a friend or a family member or a trusted partner, professional, or somebody that you want to earn a trusting relationship with professionally. It is so incredibly important that you create an environment of grace and gratitude. I believe that when people feel valued, you create trust. When you openly share gratitude and endorse others' behaviors without showing any bias, without there being some underlying reward or benefit to you by doing so, when you do it authentically, genuinely, people feel valued. And when people feel valued, particularly in the professional environment, they begin to trust. When you demonstrate open, objective behaviors versus any kind of bias in how you're spending your time or who you're spending your time with, you begin to build trust. Trust is genuinely the fabric of everything in our lives. When we feel that there is any kind of erosion of trust or an inability to build trust, what does that do with your behaviors? How much effort do you put into something that you feel is not yielding a mutual trusting relationship? Can be a little bit of a different dynamic, whether it's personal or professional, right? But again, when people feel valued professionally, it results in building a trusted environment. When you have a trusted environment, people will literally run through a wall for you to create the desired outcomes in whatever business you might be in. Women in Cloud, right, is a great example. Building high trust relationships can be very difficult, but the reward far outweighs the risk. Be intentional, devote the time. The time investment, I will tell you, can be daunting. It can move your priorities and shift some things. So I will tell you personally, I spend a great deal of time early morning and late evening on email, on some of the more administrative duties, because I spend time intentionally connecting with, talking with, and building trust with individuals. We acquired a company a couple of years ago. I went from 4 locations to 15 in a period of a few months. I spent every waking day visiting every one of those locations and talking to the individuals that were part of the acquisition, painting the clarity. You heard that from from Tucker just a moment ago. Clarity, transparency, active listening, seeking to understand, following through, listening to what people were telling you. I tell you what, knowing people's names and making a note of really acknowledging who you're meeting and who you're talking with, acknowledging who they are, acknowledging that acquisitions are difficult, having that face time, investing that time, really, really began a journey for me that 2 years later, I would tell you, one of the most successful acquisitions that we endured as a company, and the team that we brought with us has made us stronger than ever. And I feel that I've created and built countless trusting relationships. And the outcome of those relationships has continued to expand in a business sense, trusting relationships with expanded client business and partner business, which has truly been remarkable. So building trust, again, is the fabric of our personal and professional lives. Active listening is something that you can do today, that you can put front and center today. Just put down that device, actively listen. Again, think about an environment of grace and gratitude. Those are the 2 words I want to leave you with. And the action for today that you can put into action today truly is listening, carefully listening. And that's what I have to share with you today.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Those are all just the most amazing change management principles that you're talking about. And you're talking about, doing that from a personal level, but as a leader, these things make a difference, right? It reminds me the through line between all the things we've been hearing, or, paint the bathroom, put them first. Also, just really paying attention and listening to people.
Yes.
I remember, in communication workshops, I would just say, how listen to you do you feel when I am like shuffling papers on my desk, right?
Exactly.
And that's the way it was before, but now it's when you're on your device at dinner. So,
Sure.
have
Yes.
your process and policy for that. So thank you so much for sharing those
Of
tips.
course.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to count on that gratitude and grace. Thank you so much, Brenda.
Thank you, Patty. I really appreciate the time. Thank you all for joining today. Go Women in Cloud.